Was One Punch Man Season 3 Episode 2 good? Well, let's talk about it. And yes everyone, One Punch Man Season 3 Episode 2 finally dropped, and I have some stuff to talk about. Well, yes, there are some stuff that are pretty much the same as the last episode, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, obviously. This episode does look a bit rough. You can definitely see the struggles in the production itself, and it honestly hurts to watch knowing how much potential this series has. But before people go out and spams, oh my goodness, trash episode and all that, I think it's pretty important to actually talk about what's happening here. Both the good and the bad. Because believe it or not, there are still a lot of positives buried under the rough surface, so let's talk about it. Hey guys, and welcome back to another brand new One Punch Man video. And yes, I got sick again. I'm not sure what the hell is happening to me these days, so yes, I sound really different right now, I guess. It's not the best. I'm not enjoying this situation I'm in right now, but unfortunately I have to milk more. And yes everyone, I am taking my time to edit, record, and also rest a bit. So this week I might take some time off, unfortunately. I'm gonna let the cow rest for a bit. But yes everyone, welcome back to another breakdown and review video, and this time it is for One Punch Man Season 3 Episode 2. And yes, in this video we're going to go through the flaws, the highlights, and everything in between. I'll also give some production context so we can understand why things look the way they do. But again, it doesn't justify the rough looking episode despite some really good action. But yes everyone, just like before, this review video isn't just about blind hating or blind glazing the episode itself, which is why I'm calling this a my honest thought type of video. So yes everyone, I'm going to be real with what's going on in front of us, so let's get started. Alright, so let's just get this out of the way because I know some people love to twist the word, and since some of you guys have really selective hearing when I talk about the flaws, let's make this clear as possible and make the first segment as the flaws. Yes, episode 2 looked a bit rough. Not a bit, but overall it looks pretty rough. You can definitely see the visible struggle all throughout the episode. Some really inconsistent drawing, some obvious corner cutting scene, like look at that Garo scene that everyone is making fun of. Yes, it's clear that production team is struggling to keep things stable, and the episode had 4 animation directors, which on paper should sound really great. More people helping polish things, am I right? But in reality, that's actually just a red flag. While it is not 20 animation directors working on an episode, more amount of animation directors working on it sometimes means this team was struggling to finish it on time, so they had to bring in extra hands to clean up or fix inconsistent shots. And despite that, you can still see the unevenness in terms of the whole consistency throughout the episode. The drawing quality dips in and out sometimes. Some scene looks fantastic while others look straight up questionable, and that kind of inconsistency usually screams production stress, which is pretty unfortunate for the case of One Punch Man because everyone wants the S-tier treatment for this show. Now, why does that happen? Well, it's usually because a team ends up cutting out time-consuming work. Yes, even some normal looking walking scene or this Garo sliding down the hill. I mean, like, when you guys actually watch the entire scene, Garo was sliding down the hill in PNG while the bullies are walking in animation. I'm not sure why people are not pointing that out, but I guess it's just too funny to see. But yes everyone, they have to meet the airing deadline, and these are the kinds of scenes that would normally take weeks to polish. And when you are running on a tight schedule, some things just gotta give. So when you're animating a show that's this demanding with limited time and manpower, you will have to cut corners. And I would say they are definitely gambling here. They have clearly decided to prioritize the action sequences, especially the final scenes, and to be fair, that gamble kind of paid off in this episode because that Kenichiro Aoki's scene at the very end was easily the standout moment. But again, one good scene doesn't mean it nullifies the entirety of the flaws of the episode itself. But it's still worth mentioning that this episode, despite the rough production, it still delivers something pretty decent. Aoki scene, like his timing, motion, posing, have that signature intensity that he's known for. While it is not his best work ever, but it's still a reminder that there are talented people working on the show, even under such harsh conditions. But that's what makes it so frustrating, alright? You can definitely see the potential trying to break through the cracks, but unfortunately it's just being held back by the circumstances of how bad the production has been behind the scene. Now that we have talked about stuff that everyone really loves, which is the bad thing of the show, now let's talk about stuff that will usually just underplay. Because, well, since we are complimenting the episode, we are fake fans for not complaining apparently. Breaking news! You can talk about the good thing of the episode while still criticizing it. Oh my goodness, shocking, am I right? So yes everyone, now that we've talked about what didn't work, let's give credit to the stuff that did. First of all, the storyboards. I think they are still more or less in the same direction as episode 1. Yes, basically they're going to the very faithful to the manga structure. That is definitely, well, not the best case scenario for an anime adaptation. I'm not saying being faithful to the manga is bad whatsoever. It is an adaptation for the manga itself, so it's fair. But again, as I've mentioned before, it would be much fresher to see a much more fresher look at the anime itself. But what's interesting is that this episode doesn't feel like a carbon copy of the manga, I would say. As an anime only watcher, there are definitely some scenes that where the framing actually felt pretty fresh. And there are some sequences that felt lightly rearranged or reimagined to flow better on screen, and I think that is a great call from Shinpei Nagai. Especially the way he storyboarded the Kenichiro Aoki's cut, it looks really good. So in this case, I am really looking forward to see what his action episode is going to be, because I'm pretty sure he will be handling most of the storyboards in this season. Talking about action, let's talk about Aoki himself. And oh my goodness, that sequence really elevated the entire episode. His sense of timing, yes, the Kenichiro Aoki timing, and his ability to create dynamic motions, the camera swings, the weight of the impacts, it's just textbook Aoki. You can instantly tell it's his work, and even with limited schedule, he still managed to deliver something very impressive. The usage of 3D CG background that was mentioned in Nagai's tweet was also used pretty well here. The usage of it definitely looks great in terms of how the overall movement of it is being applied. So again, I'm pretty hyped for the future of the action scenes. Now let's talk about the compositing, which is basically what everyone has been talking about. And yeah, this aspect of the season is definitely one of the things that should be proud of. The overall look and the layer blending are genuinely beautiful. It's honestly what's keeping this season visually appealing overall. And even when the animation itself struggles, the compositing just kinda carried, even if there was some limited action in the actual episode itself. And the new director of photography, Yukihiro, said clearly knows how to make each frame looks really appealing. Especially this shot that looks really good. I just love his compositing work in this season. And personally, I would say it's a big step up compared to season 2, and it makes even static shots feel alive. Something that I realized as well is the artistic choice of these very over-exaggerated neon colors type of scene, which definitely shifted the atmosphere of a scene as a whole. This has been a thing ever since episode 1 actually aired, so I'm not really sure who's the person behind this really cool idea of using these colors to convey a certain scene. Maybe it's a new series director, Shinpei Nagai, as it is indeed something that I would say quite prominent in the season 3 so far. I mean, like, we've watched 2 episodes and both episodes does apply these new artistic choice. So again, it's a really cool thing to see, and I don't mind it. It actually looks good. Both Yuki Hirose as the director of photography and also Tanashi Mayumi as a color designer for actually stepping up their game in season 3. And then there's the art direction, and oh my goodness, this episode looked beautiful in terms of background art. Sakura Murakami, who's apparently an in-house JC Stuff art director, replaced the Hilir Musa duo from previous seasons, and this change was absolutely the right call. The backgrounds in episode 2 are hands down some of the best One Punch Man has ever had. The overall look of the background, basically the art direction, everything just feels richer and more immersive, and even something as simple as this feels cinematic. And the fact that it's all done in-house at JC Stuff makes it even more impressive. I would argue that this is literally the best One Punch Man has ever looked in terms of the background's art overall. Yes, even surpassing season 1 art direction. So yes everyone, even with all the production flaws, there's still a lot of care being put into this episode. It's not like they have given up, it's more like they're trying to make the best out of a tough situation. Which again, I am definitely sure that they're gambling to make the actions as good as possible. I mean, like, it is action based, so it makes sense for them to actually prioritize action scenes more than ever. And yes, everyone, in every review video, I would like to put this contextual reflection, I would call it, and talk about what's actually happening with One Punch Man. And it's basically a reflection of how the anime industry works in general. Tight deadlines, overlapping production, lack of rest, and yet the animators still somehow manage to pull off miracles like this episode. So while it's easy to point fingers, I think it's worth appreciating that even with all these issues, episode 2 still managed to feel more or less like One Punch Man, where it has that same energy even if it's buried under rough production edges. And if I had to predict what's next, I think episode 3 till episode 5 might be the turning point based on the pacing, and this second episode felt more like a bridge between setup and the payoff, and seems like the story structure from the manga suggests that episode 3 will probably ramp things up even more with Garo's action, and I really hope that's where they put the remaining resources. And it's pretty common in anime production to front load or backload resources into certain episodes, so even if episode 2 was rough, it might be because they're saving the big guns for episode 3 till episode 5. Again, you can call that copium whatsoever, but that seems to be the case in this scenario. And honestly, if they can actually pull that off, even just one solid episode that recaptures that exact One Punch Man season 1 energy, it could definitely turn the conversation around pretty fast. Right, so before I actually end the video, I would like to talk about the criticism side, because yes, it's totally fair to be disappointed. Yes, it's totally fair to say this episode looked rough or felt unfinished, or even say, oh, it's bad for me. Those are valid opinions. If you rated it 2.2 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, sure, you have the valid opinions because it holds up to your personal standard. But at the same time, there is a huge difference between criticizing and mocking. Giving your opinion isn't a bad thing, but the moment it turns into mocking or personal attacks on the stuff, that's where it crosses the line. I'm not referring to anyone personally here, I'm just talking about it in general. While you or probably other people doesn't do it, but there is some part of the community where it actually happens. Yes, the rough production isn't an excuse to ignore the flaws, but it's also not a free pass to insult the animators or even the director. Remember, these are people, actual individuals with emotions who might be under extreme pressure right now trying to make something that satisfies millions of fans. Director Shinpei Nagai and his team are clearly under a lot of pressure, and it's easy to joke about the production or to meme it or even call it lazy. But behind that is a group of people working overtime in less than ideal conditions. And while yes, that doesn't make the flaws magically disappear, it's important to acknowledge that they probably want it to look better too. So yes, criticism is totally fair, but when it comes to mockery and hate disguised as just my opinion, that is just reaching another level of low. It is unfortunate that One Punch Man is getting this kind of treatment, but the least we can do as a viewer is giving feedback with some level of empathy. But yes everyone, overall, episode 2 isn't the worst thing ever, but it's definitely not the best either. It is a rough but somewhat hopeful step towards a hopefully better quality of animation in the future of One Punch Man Season 3. And yes everyone, this episode clearly struggles, but it also shows moments of promise that might pay off later. The upcoming episodes will be the real test. Episode 1 is pretty much the setup, episode 2 is the bridge, and the next one should be the start of the real payoff. Especially if the stuff can pull together more polished cuts and dynamic animation, it should be something that please the fans. So yes everyone, I'd say this episode is okay, not amazing, not terrible, just okay overall. It is definitely much better than the episode 1 in terms of how everything has moved. There's still potential here, and I really hope the stuff gets the time and support they need to make it shine. Overall, I'm rating this episode a 7 out of 10. Anyways, that's been my breakdown for One Punch Man Season 3 Episode 2. If you enjoyed this kind of a deep dive episode breakdown, don't forget to subscribe and like, and let me know what's your thoughts in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next One Punch Man video. Goodbye.